As a follow-up of the first introduction to Fusion, I would like to show you a quick process how we could bring this geometry I have here into Fusion, and then how we rebuild basically exactly the same design details we have here, just quite quickly in Fusion. So, beginning of the semester, and when I also introduced you to the screw command, I mentioned to you that, for example, you can have different objects or profiles to create sharp edges, or inside, for example, one object with Y, you can rip a surface, for example, to artificially crease an edge. Because we, technically speaking, break it really apart. But the visual look we get is sharp, and we can later round something like this. So how do we now proceed bringing all those different elements actually over into Fusion? Well, step number one is basically all we need is just the screw command. So I can turn everything off. This also includes all the split surfaces and the Boolean, as well as the subsurface commands. Okay. And then I can select everything, File, Export, and for example bring it over again, scale 100, selection only, and apply modifier. And let's go into Fusion. And then there I go to Sculpt mode, Insert, Desktop, Top, and bring it in. And then the mesh object I'm going to convert into Tspline objects, and then all the TS objects I convert into new BREP faces or NURB surfaces. Okay, great. So then all this, for example, I can delete. And let's take a look what we have here. This surface actually I would like to reverse. There's an opening, so I can fill it with the patch. I want to reverse it. Okay. Now the biggest challenge you will have at the beginning when you start learning how to use software programs to create computer models is understanding when, at what point through your modeling, but I rather would say your design process, you have to perform certain tasks. Now in Blender, basically all we did was just exploring different ideas. We didn't really pay attention to accuracy or physical correctness. But now in Fusion, for example, we would like now to build a shell that we can send to a 3D printer. So we have to be a little bit more careful about how we apply different commands and build our foam model. On this part, for example, I have those cutouts, so I can go ahead and actually, hold on, sorry, for 1 second, I have to fix something here. So actually, those parts I had first as shells, but that was a little bit unnecessary because I make solids. Okay, so this is my array object, and I turn off again the subsurface and just have my array running. Export wavefront obj. I don't know, maybe I just call this array for the sake of simplifying the design right now. And then in Fusion, Sculpt, Insert Mesh. There's my array object. Okay, and then I, for example, right-click, convert into T-splines, and then select T-splines, right-click, convert into VREMs. And then the stuff I can delete. And actually, everything from here to here, I am going to join right now through the stitch command. You noticed by doing this stitch command, currently the feature, like the surface patch, which is a feature, so it's interactive, kind of like a modifier, is being applied. So be careful about when you do the stitch command. It bakes it together. So now let's see what we have here inside our design object, scene. So I have my handle parts, I have my battery pack, I have my body. So maybe let's try first to bring a little bit of order into this. So this one maybe I call top, and this one I call battery. And this one, for example, I call handle. And those are all my different array parts. There's one last one piece missing, kind of like the lower battery part. So this is actually going to be an interesting object to take a look at. So here Blender everything looks okay, not too bad. But if you go into wireframe mode, you can see that there is something distorted happening here. So if I turn off the subsurface, export the mesh, and then in Fusion import it, it doesn't look too bad. However, if I now convert this into a TS object, let's take a look. Looks okay as well, but let me show visual style shaded with visible edges only. You can see that there's a lot of craziness happening there right now. This might not necessarily be really ideal. There are two ways actually how I can fix this. First, I mentioned before that the T-spline is basically a polygon modeler inside Fusion, just with kind of like a permanent subsurface modifier. And I can select this object, go to display mode, and say show me the box model. Okay, because there actually I can see how, for example, my geometry got brought over into Fusion. So for example, those edges, they're not really helping me at all. So I can select these edges, press delete, and just delete them. And maybe I do the same here. Okay, now let's see how this actually will look now when we turn on the TS mode. Yeah, okay, seems not really to work. Not really a problem, because in Blender, the problem is this is not a face with 4 points, it is a face with more than 5 points. Not really ideal. So easy fix, we just delete that face. So we open the part, and then we just export it. So I really liked this type actually, or this example, because sometimes trying to fix something will take longer than just going back and simply do it the right way. So this one I convert into TS object. There you can see now the geometry is really nice and perfect. And for example, where do we have it? For example, we can do a little bit of mesh modeling here. So when you select those, for example, where's the command? Not merge edges, fill hole there. Also doesn't really look super great. And 1 second. Ah, there, bridge. I didn't see it, sorry. I was looking for it all the time. So, similar like in Blender, you can select 2 opposite edges, bridge it, click OK. And, oh, I had some extra features turned on. So let's do this again. Yeah, number of faces, just 1, which means there are no secondary loop cuts. Okay, great. Maybe, so it's easier to model, I just simply turn it into the box mode, because now I can go ahead and, for example, insert an edge. No, actually not this way, insert edge. Oh. Other direction. Oh, there. Okay. And you see now those faces I can select and then say bridge, you to you. This thing set again. And maybe I can actually side 1 and then side 2. Okay. Let's do this again. So here you see actually this is pretty much the same like in Blender. Okay. Now we'll have to do the same also on the other side. But what I would like to show you is, this is one way, for example, how you can do this. So I go ahead and mesh model everything. I can also take this Tspline object and convert it into a B-wrap. So I have this open gap. So you see, I can see through. But then I can go to the patch model mode and simply patch those openings in. So you see, to fix this command or this approach was actually drastically faster than fixing the mesh model. So what I wanted to illustrate with this quick demonstration is there are always many roads that lead to Rome, but sometimes, and you will find that out through experience, there are better ways to go. Okay, so this part is now finished. And let's say this one we call battery 2. Put it to there. Okay. What I would like to talk to you about now is I would like to make those 2 parts one and then also soften all these edges. And like in Blender I mentioned, don't always work on your same model. Sometimes if you have to go back, it's good to have a safe step in between. So what I'm going to do now is I select those 2. On my Apple it's Command, on PC it's Control, Apple C to copy, Apple V to paste. So I create 2 copies. So with those now I can work, and in case I mess them up, I can delete them and still have my previous stage. So let's take a look at this pack. So let's go to Model and let's go to Fillet. And let's start rounding those edges a little bit. Maybe here I would like this edge to be there. Right click, repeat edge. Maybe in a little bit. Okay. Right click, repeat edge. There. There. So I can select two edges at once and fillet them. Okay. And if I want to adjust those fillets, for example, here I right click and then say edit, maybe 30 millimeters. So you see, not very difficult. Then I go to another fillet. The fillet function has a tangent chain, so that means if I click on an edge, and maybe this edge, and I don't know, maybe let's say 5 millimeters. If I select one edge, it follows all the other edges. And because I used a 5 millimeter edge, you can see that this is okay, but here I have a sharp edge. So maybe 5 millimeters in this case is too big. Maybe 2. See, now I can see this rounded edge. Maybe 3. Okay, fine. And up here, this edge I did not round, so you see I end up with an interesting edge rounding. Looks like a sharp crease here. But I can also select those edges and then fillet, round them and see maybe how much I need. Maybe 6 millimeters. Okay, looks good. So you see that you have different edges, and in which order you round them can create certain results or enables you to modify them in certain ways. So for example, if I select this one again, right click, hold my mouse button, go edit and say 30 is maybe a lot, maybe 20. You see the software then afterwards works down those parts. So this is good. Now let's take a look at the battery pack. Second one here. I would like to add this to this model. The nice part about the model mode, which is simulating like a solid environment, I can go to Modify, Combine, and you see the Combine has a target and a tool and an operation. So my target, my tool, and the Boolean operation should be joined, which is like in linear union. Cut is difference and intersect is intersect. Click OK. And you see they're all now merged together. Now I have like a sharp connection edge, and this one now I can round. Maybe 3 millimeters. Let's take a look. Okay. So you see, to be able to round those two parts, to create a blend surface between those two parts, I needed to first join them together so the software then can give me like an edge where those two parts intersect. So I can select that edge and then round it. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Let's maybe hide this piece for a moment. Let's go to the top part. Because up here, I would like to cut those elements out. And we can do the same. So combine. So this is my target object. And those are my tools. And with tools, maybe think about knives. And your target object is a block of foam. Should be joined, should be cut. Click OK. And there, this way I quickly cut everything out precisely. So now we have the top part and the battery pack, and what's left is, for example, our handle. Now the problem with the handle is currently it is just a shell. See? So there are two ways to fix it. I can create a patch, and this might be the easiest way. So this is closed. And patch only works when, for example, this profile is planar, so it's linear. If it's curved, we have to do something different. So let's assume the lower part here is slightly curved. So I would have to create maybe some helper geometry. And well, maybe I start with a cube here. Okay. So maybe from there to there. Go to left view. Oops, sorry. And let's move this one up. Maybe 55 millimeters. Oh, this one should be here. Sorry. Okay, let's say this is good. And the reason why I did this, I can delete those faces. So those are two VRAMs, NURB surfaces. And inside the patch mode, I have something that's called loft. And then I deselect chain, and I can select an edge and an edge. Sorry, software got confused. There, and there. And actually, it lofts between those two edges, which is exactly the same way how, for example, the fill command works with polygons. You select multiple edges, equal mount, and then you have the fill or bridge. Click OK. The reason why I did this was simply I can create the surface. Let's take a look if maybe this is here. It is inside the battery pack. So this means I can select this face, trim, cut this irregular lower part off, select my handle. Don't need to trim actually anything because I can delete it. And then I can go patch, fill, close it, select everything, because now I would like to turn it into solid and stitch. And it's a solid foam model. At this point, basically, I'm very close to have everything finished. For example, this part I would like to join and join, so I could go to Model, Combine, U, and U, all joined together. See, now I have just one object. Perfect. This edge is sharp, so maybe I would like to round it, so I could go to Fillet, make a nice edge softening. The only problem with this currently is it's very even, and maybe from here to there I would like to extend it more. So instead of using this fillet tool, let me show you something different. So here, for example, I have my battery pack. And I created by hand kind of like a blend surface. And with this blend surface, I can maybe explore a little bit how how maybe this whole thing should look like. So I see from here to there how maybe it blends. Once that is done, and let's say I like this, I can, for example, generate new geometry. So I select this profile, press P to separate it, SZ0, move it up, extrude, move it down. So this way I have kind of like an egg-like shape, which I would like to cut out of my battery pack. And maybe for the handle, maybe at this angle, I would like the blend to start. So I select those two meshes, File, Export, Wavefront. Let's maybe call this one Battery Pack 3. Go to Fusion, Sculpt, Insert Mesh, Battery 3. Here's my mesh object. I'm going to convert it into T-splines. I'm going to convert it to B-reps and everything else I can delete. Now the problem is I have two surfaces and a solid object. But that's not really a problem because while I have a stitch, I have an unstitch command. So I select unstitch, deselect chain. That's really important because this way I can just select the faces I would like, click OK. And now here I have the rest of my object. Now you see this is open, so it's not a watertight object, and I have my other meshes here. So and the reason why I did this was simply now I can, for example, select this profile, trim, cut the inside out, delete this profile, select my plane, trim, select all this, cut it away, and I can delete this one. So you see I removed the space in between, and then I can go to Create and Loft, Chain, select this turned on, select this ring, select this edge, and it doesn't work. So I have chain select turned on, but the reason why it doesn't select this complete profile is because those are individual patches or NURBS surfaces. So what I have to do is select all these four, stitch them together. Okay. So you see I have two objects because now if I go to Loft, see it selects each chain. And the nice thing about the Loft tool is, you see I have Profile 1 and Profile 2. Inside the Loft command, Profile 1, continuity, maybe I would like to set to smooth. This is actually what I introduced you in the beginning of the semester. Free means G0, so it's very sharp. Tangent, G1, round but not really good. And smooth is G2, round, really good. If you just at the beginning break it down this way. So this really gives you the nicest and softest result. So you see now, when we change this, how this works. I can select the other profile and, for example, work with it. And there's an arrow. With this arrow, I can even push the surface in more. So I have a little bit more control in how the flow is. Same here. And let's click OK. So you see, this way I was able to create a custom blend which feels a little bit more adequate to the shape of the handle. Now the problem is, how do I get everything back into my main object? Not really difficult. I select everything, stitch, OK, and yep, it is a solid object again. Perfect. So at this point, basically, we are ready to maybe shell it. And let me show you how you can quickly do this. In top view, you will see that my object is perfectly lined up along the wall center. And for example, the same you also have in Blender. That's the reason why I'm stressing this so much. So either in Blender I could create a cube, bring it over into Tspline's Fusion, but I can do the same here. So what I was talking about is I go to the model mode, create a box, select this plane, click and click. I don't really see a lot, so let me rotate and then show you what's happening here. So now I have to define the height of the object, and you see the further that cube goes through the object, the more it just actually cuts it out. So I draw a box that is bigger than everything, so it cut through. Let me undo this. Let's do this again, because that's very interesting to keep in mind inside the model mode or the solid mode. If you then add a cube or solid, you can actually perform immediately like a Boolean command. So here's my box command. I place it length, width, height, and the operation. I can say join, cut, or just, for example, a new object. So you see, I'm just creating a cube. I'm joining the cube to my design, or I'm actually cutting this cube out of my design. So it's a nice automated process. Instead of having to create a cube and then going to modify and combine, you can just do that right at once. Okay, so why did I do this? Well, the main reason is we have to shell this object out now, and for shelling you need a planar face. So I go to shell. I can select inside or outside or both. I want inside, and then I pick this edge. This face. Now, before I do this, one really good tip of advice. Shelling is probably one of the hardest and most computation-intensive tasks, because the software has to offset all the surfaces, trim them, make sure there are no gaps, self-intersections, etc. So if you're new to it and you just want to make a basic model you could print, maybe details like those cutouts, those grooves, are not really necessary yet to be in there. But the rest, that is okay. Specifically where you have really fine details, that is really difficult for the shelling commands. And this object right now is not really very complicated, but it's just a lot of math. And you see, I just clicked that face, and now I can wait for a second. Now the software is doing the computation. Now it tells me class modeling error, and that's because the surface is actually, the offset is too thick. So maybe let's see what I can do with 2 millimeters. Now the software is calculating again. Still doesn't work. 1 millimeter. And I think 1 millimeter will work. Problem is only the 3D printer will not like 1 millimeter because it's probably too thin for that machine. But maybe it's worth actually to give the Z-Core printer a try. But I think 2 millimeters at least, so when you bring the shell out, it doesn't break in your finger. But yeah, so there you see it. Now we have like 1/2. Now we could, for example, export it to an STL model, mirror it. So we have each side, and then we can just print it out, and then you can put it to your hand, and then see if it looks good, if it feels good, yada yada yada. So I hope this is basically a good introduction into some of the basic ideas in how to work with the software and what surface and solid modeling means in comparison to polygonal, I would say digital sculpting like Tsplines or Blender. So they all are really good for certain tasks. Because I want to make a computer model, I need precision, so I use Fusion. If I want to quickly sculpt out a handle or make very fast iterations and think through design, maybe like an environment like Blender, because it's so fast, is a better choice. But the nice part, as you can see in this workflow, I don't really have to redo design or rebuild it. I might have to convert surfaces, but that's not really a lot of work to do. And I end up with a perfect manufacturable model. In the next video, then I will show you some further tricks and some a little bit more how you can work with Fusion.